guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our read-along of Guardian. Let's jump right into it. Chapter 35. I'll lead the way. Xiao Guo, follow me. Lao Chu, stay at the back. Zhao Yunlan starts walking and then thinks of something. He pulls his spare gun from his ankle holster and asks Guo Changcheng, "Did you pass the firearms test?" Guo Changcheng lowers his head in shame. The examiner said unless he dies and comes back to life, he won't let me pass. Zhao Yunlan sighs. What about a knife? Can you use that? Guo Changcheng lowers his head even further. Chu Shuzhi laughs cynically, making Guo Changcheng even more miserable. I've recruited a world peace ambassador. Zhao Yunlan looks gloomily into the endless cave. Finally, he fumbles until he pulls out a miniature stun baton and hands it to Guo Changcheng. Impatiently, he explains its use, as if teaching a kid how to wipe his ass. Take this. It's very simple. Just hold it out in front of yourself. No need to do anything else. Just try not to be too scared to move. Can you do that? Guo Changcheng holds the small gadget and shakes it a bit, but nothing happens. The thing looks like a little torch, but Guo Changcheng doesn't suspect that the chief is lying. He thinks he must be too dumb to understand what this does. He has a tendency to think the worst of himself. Tired of explaining, Zhao Yunlan starts moving forward. Guo Changcheng runs a few steps to catch up, pondering whether he should ask. A normal human's rational mind would tell him that under dangerous circumstances, he shouldn't be kept in the dark. But Guo Changcheng stares at Zhao Yunlan's tall figure and thinks fearfully that if he asked, the chief would probably bite his head off. When he imagines a furious Zhao Yunlan, he trembles, and the baton suddenly shoots out a sparkling flare, lunging at Zhao Yunlan from behind. Oh no! Luckily, Zhao Yunlan is incredibly alert. When he hears something suspicious, he swiftly dodges. The electric current charges deep into the cave with a rush of heat. Chu Shuzhi shouts, F! Zhao Yunlan also shouts, F! Chu Shuzhi stares at Guo Changcheng in shock. He never thought this piece of garbage would do what nobody in the SIU dares to even think about. Beat up the bastard chief. Zhao Yunlan superstitiously wipes mud and water off his clothes. What the F did you do? Guo Changcheng is extraordinarily innocent. I don't know. It suddenly moved. BS, that thing attacks when you're scared. The more frightened you are, the more powerful it becomes. It's totally tailor-made for you, alright? Zhao Yunlan is losing his mind. What the hell were you thinking looking at my back that got you so scared? We were just walking! After a strange silence, Guo Changcheng, quivering, points at the stomping and enraged Zhao Yunlan. I was thinking about this! Zhao Yunlan is speechless. Chu Shuzhi really can't hold it anymore. He bursts out laughing. Then he reaches out. Let me take a look. Chu Shuzhi rarely talks to him. Guo Changcheng is flattered and dazed and obediently hands it to him. Chu Shuzhi shakes the stun baton next to his ear and knocks on it. Realization dawns in his eyes and he throws it back at Guo Changcheng. He gives Zhao Yunlan a meaningful look. Chief Zhao, this is probably something shady, isn't it? Zhao Yunlan chuckles. As if you're not shady yourself. Careful! His expression changes. He ducks and pushes Guo Changcheng aside. There's a loud bang like a large explosion, and a shockwave rushes by above their heads. A putrid odor follows, and then a giant comb-shaped object hurtles through the air. Its base is thick wood, around 3 meters long, and covered with sharp blades. Anyone it hits will instantly be turned into mincemeat. Chu Shuzhi stands against the wall and takes out a dozen paper talismans. The giant comb makes a U-turn midair and swings at them from above. The talismans in Chu Shuzhi's hand fly out like throwing darts and stick precisely to the densely packed knives. But perhaps he picked the wrong talismans because the object is completely unaffected and comes slashing down with a chilling gust. Zhao Yunlan's gun slides into his hand. Nobody has seen it coming, but at this instant, the slow-witted Guo Changcheng finally realizes the situation and lets out an inhumane shriek. Mommy! A blast of flame shoots out from his stun baton. 3 meters of intense heat. The power of the fire is like a gas explosion. Zhao Yunlan and Chu Shuzhi dodge at the same time, and the blazing jet whooshes towards the dozens of blades. The giant comb quivers in the fiery vortex and eventually melts into a liquid. splashing onto the ground with hissing noises. For a minute, nobody speaks. A long time passes before Chu Shizhi stiffly turns his neck, looks at Guo Changcheng, and exclaims from the bottom of his heart, "Wow, you're so badass!" Guo Changcheng's mind has gone blank in pure terror, and his heart is still thundering. He desperately wishes for some sedatives. When he hears Chu Shizhi, a million emotions surge up inside of him. He got complimented. Good for him. I thought you just sealed an earthbound spirit with a stun baton. A resentful spirit that feeds on fear and converts it to energy. Chu Shizhi turns towards the chief, shivering a little. What did you do to make that thing? Zhao Yulan's expression switches from astonished to pompous at the speed of light. He adjusts his clothes and says seriously, It's illegal to imprison spirits. I'm a decent, law-abiding civil servant. Why would I blatantly break the law? Chu Shizhi has nothing to say to that. In fact, it contains the shattered souls of a few hundred executed ghosts. Most of them I got from the Ghost Slayer, and some I exchanged with underworld guards for spirit money. Then I mixed the souls from Samadhi True Fire. Chu Shizhi is having a nervous breakdown. And where the hell did you get the fire? Last year I captured an escaping Buffon bird, and I borrowed its flames to light a cigarette, and then I preserved the spark. Chu Shizhi is speechless. He extends an arm to help Guo Changcheng get up, and says feebly, never mind, let's keep going. He has a gangster chief who makes friends with good and evil, and all sorts of beings from the three realms. He's afraid that in his entire life, by normal means, he'll never achieve his wish of beating him up. But perhaps this glorious and arduous mission will fall to his comrade and office mascot, Guo Changcheng. Zhao Yulan smiles and is about to remind them to be careful when a long whistling sound comes from far away, and a cloud of fluorescent gray smoke floats over and lands in Zhao Yulan's hand. The shining cloud disappears and a letter materializes, a pitch-black envelope, blood-red words, and a familiar scent. Chu Shizhi's expression turns tense, and he takes a step backwards. Zhao Yulan is afraid Guo Changcheng might lose control again, and walks forward a little on purpose to avoid that troublemaker. Chu Shizhi asks, Is it from the Ghost Slayer? Yeah. Zhao Yulan rips open the envelope, but what's written in the letter puts a frown on his face. The Ghost Slayer never has a lot to say, but he would normally at least start with greetings and unimportant formalities, as if he wanted to ask all about your distant relatives before he says what he's actually writing to say in just a few words. Perhaps that's called the subtlety of an accomplished gentleman. But this time, the letter is just one sentence, the writing scribbled like a sticky note. Danger, do not proceed, turn back at once. Chu Shizhi asks, Why would the Ghost Slayer send his letter here? What's wrong? Zhao Yulan folds the letter and puts it in his pocket without saying anything. The Ghost Slayer usually sends his letters to the SIU office. Unless it's extremely urgent, they don't follow Zhao Yulan anywhere else to fall right into his hands. After all, the Ghost Slayer prefers not to be seen, and the same applies to his letters. What's happening now? How does the Ghost Slayer know where Zhao Yulan is? Zhao Yulan stays perfectly calm on the outside, but his mind goes round and round, thinking of all sorts of possibilities. He hesitates and says to Chu Shizhi, Lao Chu, please take him back to join up again with Lin Jing and the others. What? Guo Changcheng asks, We're not going to find Wang Zheng anymore? I'll go alone. You guys go back now. Zhao Yulan pats Guo Changcheng on the shoulder. Hold on to the baton, and be careful on your way back. Destroy the ritual site on the mountain with Lin Jing, and keep an eye on Shen Wei and his students. Wait for the rescue team to clear the road. Chu Shizhi has an uneasy feeling. You're going alone? Zhao Yulan nods without saying a word. Chu Shizhi frowns, but takes Guo Changcheng's hand decisively. Let's go. He took his hand like they're holding hands? Guo Changcheng still wants to say something. But what? Don't waste time. Our chief is in a hurry to get things done and go back to his boyfriend. Now, come on. He pulls the reluctant Guo Changcheng, who keeps looking back at Zhao Yulan with a worried expression, out of the cave. Zhao Yulan holds the torch in his armpit, his leather-gloved hands in his pockets, watching the two leave. Once they leave his line of sight and the sound of a closing door is heard, he keeps walking. Suddenly, the gray smoke from earlier reappears and solidifies into a skeleton the size of a 5-year-old. The skeleton blocks his way with arms wide open. Oh, you're a very small puppet. Did the Ghost Slayer send you? Zhao Yunlan raises his eyebrows. Perhaps because of how small it is, the puppet's black eye sockets seem to look very innocent. It doesn't seem to understand what Zhao Yunlan is saying, but it continues to block his way. Zhao Yunlan rubs his chin. He never thought that the quiet Ghost Slayer actually knew him that well. If he had sent a giant skeleton, Zhao Yunlan would have busted his way through by force. But this small creature doesn't speak, and it's so tiny and fragile that Zhao Yunlan doesn't want to hurt it. Also, he has a soft spot for like tiny things, like tiny animals and tiny skeletons. Zhao Yunlan examines the determined little puppet. You're not going to move away, are you? The puppet twitches his mouth and cackles. Zhao Yunlan shakes his head. He raises his leg and steps over the small creature in one stride. The small thing has yet to realize what's happening. It turns its head following Zhao Yunlan's movements, and its skull almost falls off. It finally realizes that Zhao Yunlan is already walking ahead. The small puppet scrambles after him and grabs hold of Zhao Yunlan's clothes, not letting him go. Zhao Yunlan keeps walking with the skeleton attached to him. The small thing isn't heavy after all. If it had eyes, it would probably be crying anxiously, "Oh no, he's giving the poor puppet anxiety!" As he heads onward, the smell of decay grows stronger and stronger, the air more and more humid. Worn-out old stairs stretch downward, getting narrower and narrower. Zhao Yunlan doesn't want the skeleton getting in his way, so in the end, he picks it up like a child and puts it onto his shoulder. He looks at his watch. That's so cute! He's giving it like a little shoulder ride. So, Zhao Yunlan has a soft spot for children confirmed, perhaps? At first glance, the revealing mirror is strangely calm. Zhao Yunlan stares at it for 2 seconds, then stops walking abruptly when he realizes that the hands are going backwards. No, not all of them are. The second hand is going counterclockwise, but the minute hand is going clockwise, and the hour hand is at 12 o'clock. There seems to be a strange force drawing the 3 hands together. Finally, they all meet at 12 and stop dead. Zhao Yunlan wipes some mud off the cave wall and sniffs it. Maybe it's an illusion, Zhao Yunlan murmurs, to himself or to the mini-skeleton, but I feel like I'm buried alive. Ah, okay, end of chapter 35. So, to recap, Zhao Yunlan gives Guo Changcheng a baton, a electric baton, or like a taser practically, to arm himself in case they encounter danger. But Guo Changcheng is terrified of Zhao Yunlan because he's really intimidating and he doesn't want to disappoint him. And apparently this baton is activated when his stress levels and his fear levels increase. And so he accidentally discharges it at Zhao Yunlan's back. Now, thankfully, the chief is able to dodge it, but Guo Changcheng definitely got himself into a bit of a pickle. He almost maimed the chief. Now, you know, not only would Zhao Yunlan be mad, but Shenwei would probably murder him if he found out that even a hair of Zhao Yunlan was damaged. So, Guo Changcheng just barely saved himself there. But yeah, then they encounter this thing swinging from the ceiling, but luckily this time Guo Changcheng is able to actually discharge correctly and melts it. So he's doing better, you know, he's trying his best. It looks like Chu Shizhi is starting to admire him a bit. I think there's a little friendship or maybe a little bit of a bromance blossoming there. And then Zhao Yunlan receives a mysterious letter from the Ghost Slayer. The letter says, "Turn back, do not go forward." Now Zhao Yunlan's like, how does the Ghost Slayer know where I am? Is he stalking me, maybe? And why? And so he decides, I'm gonna send you guys back. You guys go back to the camp and I'm gonna keep going by myself. Now, he must know that the Ghost Slayer is probably watching him, which is why he's sending Chu Shizhi and Guo Changcheng back. So let's expect the Ghost Slayer to appear in the next chapter, hopefully. What I think is really cute is that the Ghost Slayer sent one of his little puppet minions, which is a little chibi skeleton, to watch over Zhao Yunlan, and Zhao Yunlan is treating it like a little child. So he put it on his shoulders, and he's just being really delicate with it, which is really surprising considering how gruff he normally is. He's even really gruff with Da Qing, you know? So I think it's really cute that he's being really gentle with the small puppet. So let's keep going. Let's go on to chapter 36. The small puppet cackles and pokes at Zhao Yulan's cheek with his tiny finger bones. Then it points towards a nearby wall and cackles again. Zhao Yulan lifts the torch and finds some writings on the wall. Well, you may not have eyes, but your sight is good. That's Hangul language. Zhao Yulan moves closer and touches the wall lightly. No, strictly speaking, the Hangul didn't have their own language. This must be a special kind of spell. The small skeleton says, Ga? Ga? Don't ask me, I'm not a multilingual dictionary. Gods know what that means. Zhao Yulan moves in even closer and murmurs, but I do know that in Hangul language, in Hangul culture, round shapes were considered benign and peaceful, whereas cornered shapes were considered evil. For instance, a triangle imprisons spirits, and I saw an octagon too, but I haven't yet figured out what it means. He runs his fingers across the writings and finds an octagonal symbol. There it is, Zhao Yulan says calmly. Great, now comes the scary part. A huge explosion interrupts him, and the entire cave shakes. Zhao Yulan almost loses his balance, and the small puppet screeches as it clutches its collar and hair. A fire dragon comes rushing at them, howling. Zhao Yulan holds onto the wall with one hand, and to the little skeleton with the other, the blazing light painting his face red. His pupils reflect the dancing flames. Oddly, they are scorching cold. He pats the head of the little skeleton that is desperately clinging to him. Don't hang on to my clothes! Get into my watch if you're scared. Without hesitation, the little puppet forgets all about its master's orders, turns into a cloud of gray smoke, and jumps into his watch. The next moment, a wave of heat engulfs him so fast he can't dodge it. Zhao Yulan is clutching a paper talisman in his hand, but it doesn't burn in the fire. He doesn't feel the heat either. Zhao Yulan hesitates for a moment, then calmly puts away the talisman. He looks up at the fire raging tall, sweeping the entire cave clean. All he can see is flames, but they don't touch him. As the fire wears away, the octagonal symbol falls off the wall along with a layer of mud. He quickly catches it, puts it in an empty cigarette case, and stuffs it in his pocket. Then, larger pieces of mud start to peel off the wall, and a mural slowly emerges. Perhaps due to its age, most of it is obscure. The symbols on it seem very random, with no overall vision. Maybe an archaeologist could figure it out, but not Zhao Yulan. He studies the mural until his eyes almost cross, and still he has no clue what it's about. He finally loses interest and walks on. But suddenly, he thinks of something. He turns, looking at the wall from a distance. He shines his torchlight at the top of the painting, then 45 degrees downwards, 3 o'clock position, then 45 degrees downwards. He realizes that the mural makes a giant octagon, and in each corner of it there's another small octagon. Zhao Yulan stares at it, then starts rummaging into his pockets. His wallet contains some change, credit cards, and receipts, and finally, a scruffy piece of paper, torn out of an ancient book. It's the page about Lobula restriction magic from the ancient scroll of dark magic. For some reason, he didn't show it to Chu Shuji. On it is a drawing of a hideous fanged monster with 6 arms and only 1 leg, each of these plus its head pointing to one corner of an octagon. The monster looks ferocious and menacing, and its wide-open jaws hold a mountain. Its left chest has a black octagonal symbol on it. The mountain is in its mouth, and that thing is in its heart, Zhao Yulan muses. He sticks the old map he also carries around onto the wall. Then he tapes the drawing of the monster on it and slowly rotates the map, until south faces upwards. He marks a line with his fingernail, connecting the monster's mouth to its heart, and finally to the deepest part of the valley. The strange fire in the valley, the skulls at the mountaintop, and the dark magic of an extinct tribe. These things all seem to hold a deeper and darker secret. And why did Wang Zheng run off here on her own? Why is she so obsessed with her centuries-old corpse? Zhao Yulan has a bad feeling about this. When he finds Wang Zheng, he'll lock her in a dark room for a month, that troublesome suicidal girl. He heads deeper into the cave, which keeps getting narrower and narrower. He lowers his head and keeps walking until he thinks his spine will stay permanently hunched over, and only then does he arrive at the end. There's another door, and it has a 6-armed, 1-legged monster engraved on it, exactly like the one on the page from the book he brought with him, except this one looks terrified. Zhao Yulan slowly reaches out. As his palm touches the door, he feels his chest tighten as if he were having a heart attack, but he doesn't hesitate and pushes the door open. He finds himself on the edge of a cliff halfway up the mountain. Below him is the mysterious valley. He feels as though he were standing in the middle of a stormy ocean with heavy waves crashing against his chest, suffocating him. It's still day, but clouds enshroud the sun and not a single ray of light can pierce their dense cover. Zhao Yulan pauses for a moment, then walks forward. With the very first step, he seems to touch something. A silent sigh comes from the depths of the earth, spreading in ripples like water from the mountains of the Hanga people. There's something in this valley, something extraordinary. Zhao Yulan walks towards it, and the air gets thinner and thinner. The force that clutches and squashes his chest grows stronger and stronger. He feels like there's a vise around his temples, and he can only hear the rapid pumping of his pulse. His vision darkens, and he slowly adjusts his breathing. If he keeps breathing too hard, he'll quickly be exhausted. His intuition tells him that if there's something Wang Zheng hasn't forgotten in all these years since she's died, it wouldn't be her corpse, it would be this. The small skeleton hiding in his watch sticks its skull out, its jaws chattering. It seems to be saying something, but it's clearly scared. It wants to stop Zhao Yulan, but it doesn't dare come out. Zhao Yulan pushes its back into its watch, and his expression turns darker as he moves forward against the overwhelming pressure. He takes out three yellow paper talismans, different from the ones he used before. They each have Guardian written on them. If the Black Cat were here, he would recognize them. These are the legendary Guardian Order talismans. Unsure what else to do, he just keeps walking. Every 3 steps he takes, one of the talismans burns up. And, as the final one disappears, there are 3 sounds of a whip cracking. Out of thin air, a long whip appears in Zhao Yulan's hand. It seems to be alive, its tip extending straight ahead and pulling him along, until he sees a white form that is about to melt away in the daylight. Zhao Yulan's face darkens. With a flick of his wrist, he coils the whip around the white ghost and pulls her in towards him. Wang Zheng's plastic body is long gone, and her spirit is incredibly feeble. She looks at him with the calm gaze of a dying person. "Damn it! I see you've lost your mind!" Grimacing, Zhao Yulan yanks her in and stuffs her whole body into his watch, cursing all the while. His heart aches like it's about to explode. What a effing terrible place! Now he has caught Wang Zheng, he wants to head back immediately. But just then, something else attracts his attention, something which makes him look back to where Wang Zheng has been standing. He sees a colossal stone monument, dozens of meters tall, towering into the sky. It's entirely black, thicker at the bottom and thinner at the thicker at the top and thinner at the bottom, like a gigantic wedge stuck into the ground. At the bottom is a ruined ritual site. Hanga spells, perhaps incantations, are engraved all over the tumbled altar stones, and the offering table below is filled with freshly prepared blood sacrifices. The moment Zhao Yulan sees the huge tower, a million faces emerge on it, tightly packed together, every single one of them wailing in agony. Deafening screams pierce his ears, sharp shrieks made by millions of people at the same time, at the top of their voices. Zhao Yulan feels as if a large boulder is crushing his chest. There's a sharp buzz in his head and pain spreads instantly throughout his body. He bends over and vomits blood. He struggles to stand up straight again, but he can't feel his limbs. His knees buckle and he collapses to the ground. For a few seconds, he sees and hears nothing. His chest is throbbing in agony until a burst of ringing in his ears turns him numb. I can't pass out here, he thinks. With his bloodied hand, he resolutely draws the knife hidden in his trouser leg and slashes at his other palm. A freezing cold hand stops him. He's pulled into someone's arms. Amidst the smell of blood, he picks up a familiar scent, the faint and cool aroma that comes from the underworld. Is it the Ghost Slayer? Zhao Yulan's knife falls to the ground. His thoughts fade, and he falls unconscious. Cliffhanger, guys! Okay, end of chapter 36. So yes, Zhao Yulan continues on his own deeper into the cave, and the poor little skeleton is trying his best to stop Zhao Yulan from continuing, but he won't listen. And then Zhao Yulan realizes something. He takes out some of the map and the papers that he had brought with him, and he's kind of trying to figure out the puzzle that's going to lead him to where Wang Zheng is. Thankfully, he does find her, and she's not doing so well. She's kind of burning out, and so he quickly stuffs her into his watch to preserve her spirit. And now he's like, okay, time to get the heck out of here. But before he can, there's a huge pressure on his chest, like he's gonna have a heart attack, and he's finding it really hard to breathe, and like he feels like he's gonna lose consciousness. So he decides that he's gonna slash his palm to kind of wake himself up, but he is stopped by the Ghost Slayer. The Ghost Slayer has pulled him into his embrace. A hug by the Ghost Slayer himself. Wow. He is pulled into an embrace by the Ghost Slayer, and then he passes out. So, are we gonna get a princess carry in the next chapter? Are we gonna get a piggyback ride? Are we gonna get a slung over the shoulder moment? I'm not really sure. But the Ghost Slayer did make his appearance, as we had predicted, because of course, he is worried about Zhao Yunlan. And I am worried about both of them because they have found a ritual sacrifice site with dozens of millions of spirits. Oh, let's say hundreds of spirits that are trapped in this stone, like, wedge or something. So it looks like Wang Zheng was staring at it before. I don't know what she was planning to do. I'm assuming, are they the sacrifices of her people, or are they the slaves that the spirits of the slaves that her people had enslaved? I'm not quite sure, but I guess we'll find out as we continue reading. But yeah, that's all for today's read along. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye!